Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, and September the 10th, and it's 6 o'clock. And our first budget hearing will begin. And again, good afternoon, and thank you for coming in. Mr. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Bienaime,
Here.
Councilwoman Steril. Here. Councilwoman Keys.
Here.
Councilman Galvin. Here. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Meaning we have quorum. We're going to have our first hearing budget. Again, it's Wednesday, September the 10th, 2014, and we start exactly at 6 p.m. Now we're going to have Officer Stewart for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're going to have Mr. Mike McDermott in the invocation.
If everyone would please stand, place your right hand over your heart, your chest. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, please bless these proceedings tonight and give the decision makers of the city council, insight into the great needs and priorities for the citizens of North Miami, and may their deliberations serve all of the citizens of this city. Amen.
And like you all know, this is a budget hearing, and I think we're going to vote on tab A first. Then after that, we're going to do the presentation. And when you come to tab B, before tab B, that's when you're going to have your presentation. And can you give us an overview and explanation about tab A?
Staff is recommending the same millage rate as we had last year, 7.9336. That is our, well, I'm sorry, let the clerk please read tab A first for me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
For the record.
And just for the record, I have to read it in its entirety.
Okay.
A resolution of the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and the City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, adopting a tentative millage rate of 7.9336 mils for fiscal year 2014 through 2015, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. Whereas the City of North Miami, Florida, City has considered an operating budget for fiscal year 2014 through 2015 in accordance with the provisions of Section 200.065 Florida Statute 2014, and whereas the millage rate necessary to fund the city's operating budget for fiscal year 2014 through 2015 is 7.9336 mils, which is 9.49% more than the rollback rate of 7.1808 mils, and whereas in accordance with Statute 200.065 subsection 5, Florida Statute 2014, as amended from time to time, a majority vote of the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and City Council is required to adopt a rate of up 7.9336 mils, and whereas the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and the City Council find that the adoption of the proposed tentative millage rate for fiscal year 2014 through 2015 is in the best interest of the city. Now therefore be it resolved by the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, Section 1, adoption of tentative millage rate. The Vice Mayor as acting mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida hereby adopt 7.9336 mils as tentative millage rate on assessed property value necessary to fund the city's fiscal year 2014 through 2015 operating budget. Section 2, effective date, this resolution shall become effective immediately upon adoption, passed and adopted by a blank vote of the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, this blank day of blank 2014.
Thank you very much, and I invite the budget manager or the city manager if you can give us an explanation and explain us why you are proposing that millage rate.
Yes, Mayor. Arthur Story, Budget Director. We're proposing the same millage rate as last year, as 2013-14. In actuality, the property values did increase slightly by 7%. But over the last few years, we haven't done many capital projects, and we do know that we do need police cars and other capital items. So we're recommending that we do keep the same millage rate, 7.9336, this fiscal year. It equates to about $1.1 million of additional revenue for the city. And I'll show you where that $1.1 million is spent at during my presentation before tab B.
And in your explanation about tab A, and you said one of the reasons that you recommend that, and you said the police department need one.
Well, we need police vehicles. It's not just the police vehicles. I don't want to just put it on the police vehicles. It's several capital items. Property values were decreasing for years. Last year was the first year they almost stabilized. This is the first year that we did have a slight increase. So we're recommending to keep the millage rate the same, and let's take care of some of the capital items that we need to take care of, that we've been slacking on over the last couple of years.
For the police vehicle, and how much money is set in the budget for it?
In this budget, there's $600,000 that is allocated for police vehicles, with approximately another $140,000 from vehicles that were supposed to be purchased last year that will be rolled over. So it's
Not for
about,
the police department, for the other departments.
well, it's
The
a
150
combination of
you
all
said.
of the departments,
Okay.
but specific, mainly the police department.
Okay, you're talking about 750,000 for
Yes, sir.
vehicles,
About
including
$740,000.
600,000 for the police department.
Yes, sir.
And thank you very much. And now I think we're gonna open public hearing on tab A. Public hearing is open on tab A. Public hearing is open on tab A. Public hearing is open on tab A. Public hearing is now closed on tab A. Can I hear a motion for approval or discussions?
I'll move tab A.
I second it. And do you have any concern, Council
No.
Keys?
We can always go back and amend this at our second reading, correct?
As long as it goes lower, we can't go
Correct.
higher.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. But if you have a concern, you can express it
I have
now.
no concern.
Okay,
I just want to make sure we could,
okay. And since we don't have any concern, and roll call, Mr. Clerk?
Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Keys,
yes.
Councilwoman Steril. Mayor Bieneme,
Yes.
tab A passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. We have tab B, and from what I understand, you're gonna have a presentation. Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
please.
Do I read it first, or?
Yeah, you're gonna read it, and then.
There's a budget summary after.
Let me pull it up here. Tab B, an ordinance of the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, adopting and approving the budget of the City of North Miami, Florida for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2014 and ending September 30th, 2015, authorizing the amount to be raised by taxation for the operation of the city for the 2014-2015 fiscal year, authorizing the expenditure of funds established by the budget, authorizing a return on investment transfer from the Water and Sewer Utility Fund to the General Fund, authorizing the city manager to implement budget amendments, revenue and/or expenditure to appropriate or unappropriate funds as required during the fiscal year and to amend the prior fiscal year budget to facilitate the year-end closing process, providing for repeal, severability, and an effective date. Whereas the budget of the City of North Miami, Florida City for the fiscal year commencing October 1st at 2014 and ending September 30th, 2015, attached hereto as Exhibit 1, was considered at public hearings held on September 10th, 2014 and September 22nd, 2014, as required by Chapter 200 Florida statutes. And whereas the Vice Mayor is acting mayor and City Council wish to approve and adopt the budget of the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2014 and ending September 30th, 2015, and to authorize that this amount be raised by taxation for the operation of the city for the 2014-2015 fiscal year. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, that Section 1, budget approved and adopted, the budget of the City of North Miami for the 2014-2015 fiscal year, attached hereto as Exhibit 1, is hereby approved and adopted. Section 2, implement budget amendment. City manager of the City of North Miami is hereby authorized to implement budget amendments, revenue and/or expenditure by resolution to appropriate or unappropriate funds as required during the fiscal year and to amend the prior fiscal year budget by resolution to facilitate the year-end closing process. Section 3, expenditure of funds appropriated in the authorized budget. Funds appropriated to the various departments in the budget may be expended by the directors of each department by and with the approval of the city manager in accordance with the provisions of the city charter and applicable ordinances. Expenditures of funds, including but not limited to enterprise funds, internal service funds, and expendable trust funds under circumstances in which additional revenues are generated by user fees or charges to offset the cost of supplying a service to residents or other city departments, shall not be limited by estimated appropriations, but rather by actual revenue, and to that extent the actual revenue received shall be deemed to be appropriated. Section 4, return on investment of water and sewer fund assets. The budget includes a transfer from the Water and Sewer Operation and Maintenance Fund to the General Fund, representing the return on investment that taxpayers would receive if the utility were sold. The transfer for the 2014-2015 fiscal year is calculated at 6.0% of fixed assets as of September 30th, 2013. This transfer may be made annually, but will not exceed 7.5% of the utility's net fixed assets. Section 5, checks. All checks on city bank accounts shall be signed by any member of the city council and the finance director. Section 6, amount of taxes. The approximate amount of $17,503,679.00 shall be the amount of gross taxes to be raised by the operating ad valorem tax levied authorized by resolution of the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and City Council. Section 7, authority of manager. The city manager is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents and instruments and to do and cause to be done any and all acts and things necessary or proper for carrying out the transactions contemplated by this ordinance. Section 8, repeal. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict or inconsistent are repealed. Section 9, severability. If any word, clause, phrase, sentence, paragraph, or section of this ordinance is held to be invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, such declaration of invalidity shall not affect any other word, clause, phrase, sentence, paragraph, or section of this ordinance. Section 10, effective date. This ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage on second reading. Passed and adopted by a blank vote. The Vice Mayor is acting mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida on first reading this blank day of September 2014. Passed and adopted by a blank vote of the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida on second reading this blank day of September 2014.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soe.
Thank you. As mentioned earlier, staff is recommending a millage rate of 7.9336, the same millage rate as last year. This chart just shows you, in the past, we did have debt service, which is the green bars at the bottom, how much debt we did have. For the third straight year, we do not have any debt service to pay. So the millage rate is at 7.9336, the proposed millage rate. The general fund, this year, your general fund will be $60.1 million, up just slightly over $4 million from last year. Last year's estimated expenses, that is. How is this money generated? Through taxes, we'll generate $24 million, 24.4. Licenses and permits, $1.9 million. Governmental revenue, $6.2 million. Charges for services, $4 million. Fines and forfeits, $2.7 million. Miscellaneous revenues, $2.7 million. And non-revenues, $17 million. All in a total of $60 million, $60.1 million for your general fund budget. The next one is basically how that money is broken down for each category. I won't go through all of the categories that we have in the past, but you do have a breakdown of how all of the money is broken down for each of the categories. And again, these categories total $60.1 million. One that I will touch on is the non-revenues, since it's such a large amount, the $17 million. That is where our reserves are at, and that is where the interfund transfer from the water and sewer department is, stormwater. Those are the enterprise contributions that come over into the general fund, along with your money that's set aside for reserves, the $5 million in reserves, money left over from the Biscayne Landing proceeds. Where does your $60.1 million go this year? 55% of it will go to personnel, 20% to operating costs, 7% internal services, grants and aids about 1%, reserves $16 million is in there, 16% in the reserves, I'm sorry. And I know you'll note personnel services is 55%. I think it might have been maybe 3-4 years ago we were at 69% for personnel services. So personnel services continues to go down through over the few years. The next slide is a slide of all the departments. Let me start by saying pretty much almost every department did increase slightly. The increase, however, is because of $1 million additional funds for pension. Our pension costs did go up by $1 million, so that is one of the main reasons. Also, built into this proposed balanced budget is the reduction of furlough days, the reduction from 6 to 3 furlough days, as well as a 2% cost of living increase for all non-unionized employees. The increase, the 2% increase also it recognizes the 2% that we did give the police department. We have taken that into account, that we gave the police department, I believe we ratified last night. So this budget does take that 2% into account. Again, all the departments total $60.1 million. The next one, we'll move over now into our enterprise fund, stormwater. The budget for stormwater is $2.7 million, with a modest reserve of about $48,000. Operating expenses is about 1.3, personnel, $541,000. Debt services is $441,000, and internal services is $7,000. The stormwater fund is, like I said, we have a modest reserve of about $40,000, so it's there. Also, our stormwater fund will go up by the CPI of approximately 2%, and that is done every year. Water and sewer. Your water and sewer budget this year, $48.9 million. $4 million of that is for personnel, $20 million for operating expenses, $767,000 for internal services, $8.6 million for capital outlay, and $15 million for reserves. The reserves number is high, but I just want to take a moment to explain to you, there's approximately $7 million, $7.4 million for your CIF money when we had the CIF fee, and that money is to work on the water plant. So that money is set aside. I know we're going to be addressing the water plant this fiscal year. So the majority of that money will be spent, $7 million of those dollars. Also, in conjunction with the water rate study that we did have, it was recommended that we have about $3.9 million in operating reserves. So that puts that number up to about $10 million that is set aside, that is accounted for. There's $5 million left. This does not include any of the money that we possibly will spend on the water plant outside of that. And we have left money set aside in case the second meter study, or when we do address the second meters. We didn't want to budget all the money out. We don't know what that effect is going to be on this budget this year. So there is money left aside to address the second meter problem if there is a problem or a discussion on that moving forward. Capital projects. We're proud to say this year we have a lot of money budgeted in capital projects. Building improvements, that's the police department. It's always been almost $100,000 for the last few years. But you remember last year we did spend a significant amount of money on the air-conditioned chillers. I believe we ratified that last night. So now we'll annually budget. They've used all of their money that was budgeted for the settlement. So for now on, they will have an annual allocation to keep the police department operational of $25,000. Fleet, as I mentioned earlier, there is money budgeted for vehicles in an amount of $744,000. Computer switches, $42,000. Replacement computers. We have a lease program with our computer system. The lease program has run out, so we will be updating the computers. We haven't purchased any new computers in the past 3 years, so this will be for the purchase of the new computers. Downtown revitalization. This is with transportation and some grant money in the amount of $1 million. Road and right-of-way improvements, $274,000. Street resurfacing, $650,000. Sidewalk installation, $400,000, up $300,000 from our normal allocation of $100,000. Roadway improvements, $92,000. Lift station rehab, $200,000. Sanitary sewer rehab, $2.6 million. Water and sewer equipment, $163,000. Water line replacement, $300,000. And a couple of water and sewer capital projects in the amount of $2.7. And then we have money coming out of water and sewer to replace some vehicles also, $345,000. So your total capital budget for FY15, $14.7 million. Our total budget, we're looking at this year, $141.8 million. And this is how it's broken down. General fund, again, $60.1 million. Enterprise funds, $52.6. All other funds, $16.6. Internal services, that's fleet and risk, $7 million. Housing program, about $1.7. Transportation, $3.6. $141.8 million. That concludes my presentation. I just want you, we do have the reduction of furlough days in this budget from 6 down to 3. The furlough day funds and the 2% COLA came out of the Biscayne Landing allocation for staff, the $3.5 million that was originally allocated. It was reduced down to $1.4 million last year. We did take about $600,000 out of that allocation to give the reduced furlough days and the 2% COLA. We didn't take it out of any of the other money. Also, in this budget is $200,000 budgeted for the forensic audit that we've just sent out an RFP for. And I think that's it. So.
But it's not in the draft. Did you add?
It's,
any-
it's not in the draft, you know, we
That's
change as we move.
Okay.
The budget is constantly changing, so, you know, that is not there, but it is
That's
inside
the-
our budget. And you'll have updated drafts of your budget by Monday. So prior to us going into the second meeting, you'll see the updated version of all of your drafts.
Okay, from what I understand, that's the only money allocated in the budget that's not here.
Well, it's there. That document, I presented that document to council, I think last week Thursday, or right before Labor Day, after Labor Day weekend. And it's a working document. It is a draft. That document changed today. You know, as we continue to balance the budget, as we get new information, new requests, the budget does change. So it will be updated prior to the second budget hearing, and you guys will get a copy of the updated version. Councilman Gal?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm confused. How can we review a budget on first reading that's not exactly what we're seeing? If it's constantly being updated and changed, you can't constantly do that. You have to have a point where it's first reading, and it's unchanged, and we're approving it, and there's a second reading, and then we can approve it on second reading. But if this document is different from what you're asking us to approve tonight, we can't approve this tonight because it's different.
The changes are moderate changes. There's nothing major that changed in the budget. And I'll be happy, I mean, we can go through some of the changes that were made, and I'll go through each one of them with you guys. But the document changed as we went through the budget.
But if we're gonna have a first reading and tonight, if there's any change, that you
And
need
you
to
guys will
add
have
it.
changes tonight. I'm sure that you guys are gonna ask me to make changes this evening and add stuff to the budget or take stuff out of the budget, and it's gonna change again.
My mic is on. Is your mic on?
Test, oh, sorry. Yeah, I apologize. You first need to tell, I took the time to read and look at this over the weekend. I'm prepared to talk about this. If there are any changes, no matter how small, I need to know each and every one of them before we start talking and voting. And I hate to be here till midnight, but if that's what it takes, that's what we'll have to do. But you can't add and subtract and expect me to vote in favor.
Because when you give us this, right, anything you're gonna add or take off from this, we're gonna need a vote on it. That's mean we need a complete budget. Then we can work on it. I don't know if we have to go on a recess and give you 15 minutes to put everything together to make sure we have a complete budget. Then we can work on.
If you guys would like to take a 15-minute recess, that's fine.
Thank you. We're gonna take a 15-minute recess.
Fine.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Okay. Thank you.